Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm Monroe. How you guys doing? I hope you're doing well. I rarely go back and point at a podcast that I've made on the show and say, listen to this one. But there's an instant classic without being hyperbolic. If you go back, and it's called Wasted Years with Brian Kern. And he's from the Common Chaos podcast. And I will say, we got lucky. He came, he brought it, he conquered, he slayed. That's what he does. Obviously, you know that. If you've heard the podcast, thank you. What did you think about it? If you didn't, go back and check it out. If you heard half of it, go back and finish it. It's really special. It's about 2.5 hours. Brian has a podcast called the Common Chaos podcast. And it's a great one. It's one of my favorite shows. And we also talked about his girlfriend, Becca, who has a podcast, the Tired Girls Club. And I just started hearing it. So good. So good. One of the best going podcasts in Austin. So check that out as well. And please do. It was a great one. He came to the crib, my home studio, and we put one down. And it was awesome. We talked about our childhoods, our love for professional wrestling, backyard wrestling, our love for music. We're both metal kids at our core. We probably always will be, even though we're hip hop heads, right? But we're an amalgamation of everything. We talked about growing up in Orange County, growing up in California, and how he got here. And he was so transparent, so honest. I felt like there wasn't a question I couldn't ask him, and he was very giving, even if he was talking about times in his life where he wasn't the coolest, but he was very giving on the show. So Brian, if you're hearing this, thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm happy we got that done. And we got to book the next one because you're a tremendous guest. And I've done your show a few times. It'd be cool if you did my show a few times. How are you guys? I have been, if you haven't noticed, replaying old episodes this month. We had Luis Cantu, Nacho Dung, Seams Fuentes, Eric Echo, Victor Parlato, Pseudonym Jones. Old episodes of this podcast when it was in its former iteration, the Outer Heaven podcast, which later became Indie Darlings. We got that corp figured out. It's an LLC now. It's the real deal. And I got to say, I've been thinking heavily about this track that I'm on, and my brother is going to have a baby this weekend, going down to the Rio Grande Valley, Donna, Texas, my old stomping grounds, where I came from. That's my hometown. And I'm going to celebrate the life of my niece. And I'm truly stoked for that. I'm also nervous. I pray and I hope that everything goes well, because having a baby is something I can barely fathom, even though I've seen it happen before with the birth of my daughter. But it's still just a true miracle. I mean, I don't even know how it happens. But that's to say, I will be doing a podcast Friday and Saturday in the Valley, and I'll be talking about that. So stay tuned for that as well, because I haven't carried a baby in so long, and I'm actually very excited for that, let alone a niece. This is my first baby niece that I get to hold, and I'm so excited for that, and it's gonna be good. I was thinking earlier today, I tend to meditate and ponder very deeply and hard, and my mind goes places, and it's always exciting when sometimes you get a new thought that you never really had before. Because I rethink a lot of the same shit, but it's cool to have a new thought. And I was thinking, you've always heard this expression, well, he would take a bullet for me, or I would take a bullet for her. And I was thinking, taking a bullet, nobody wants to do that. I'm not going to say it's easy. How many people truly take a bullet for another human? Outside of the military, how many people actually are even presented an opportunity to possibly take a bullet for another person? Outside of the military and the bodyguard community. And I just started thinking, how much I love my family deeply. And, of course I'd die for my kids. I'd kill for my kids. I'd take a bullet for my kids, of course. I don't know if that would ever happen, knock on wood, right? But if my house was on fire and my family was on the top floor and my house is falling apart and I'm in the bottom and I'm inhaling smoke and I got to run up the stairs that's collapsing and I can die of smoke inhalation and I can burn to death. But if I know my family's upstairs, I would walk through the flames for them, to save them, so they wouldn't have to burn or suffer. I know it's a very morbid visual, but I just wanted to introduce this new parlance, this new euphemism, this new metaphor, turn of phrase. Instead of this person would take a bullet for me, this person would walk through flames for me, would go inside voluntarily into a burning building for me. That's love. That's love. We all have friends and family that we say, I love you. But how many people truly would walk through a burning building for you so you wouldn't suffer, to save your life? How many people would do that for you? There's not many, is there? There's not many for me. Hopefully no one would even have to do that for me, but I would totally be there for my children and for Claire. And even my mother-in-law who lives with me. You bet your ass I would do that for them. Don't even have to question it. I know it's a morbid thought, but it's just something I was thinking about today. And it's rare that a new kernel or presentation of an idea or a visual will come to me. Well, guys, that's it for me. I love you. It's late. I got an hour left in the day. And I got to upload a podcast today because this is Knives Monroe versus the podcast. And it's daily. You ought to know that by now. Thank you so much for listening. Listen to that Brian Kern podcast called Wasted Years. It's really good. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening. Keep a force field around your hearts. And I'll see you guys down the road.